Who are they kidding? Us? Don't they think we can count?
Doesn't make any sense unless
What?
unless it's a drop.
What's a drop?
Now, you know what dirty money is. That's the kind of money you can't declare on your income tax. But when certain people get that kind of money, what they do is send it out of the country to invest. And when it comes back, it's clean.
So
Maybe that little bank was a drop, a collection point. Maybe all this was on its way out of the country.
fantastic. We lucked out.
More like crapped out. It's 10 to 1. This stuff belongs to the mafia. This is gambling money, skimmed off the top. Whore money, dope money.
What's the difference?
The difference is that the mafia kills you. No trial, no judge. They never stop looking for you, not till you're dead.
Welcome to the Cinematic Flashback Podcast. Get ready to hop into the Wayback Machine as we journey through the wild, bold, and unforgettable films of the 1970s. Each episode, we break down a classic movie or a forgotten gem, seeing how it performed then and now, and wrapping things up by asking, did it groove through the decades or did it lose its beat? I'm your host, Chuck Bryan, and today we are reviewing Don Siegel's 1973 film, Charley Varrick, starring Walter Matthau, Joe Don Baker, John Vernon, and Andy Robinson. This is our second film in our Crime Wave month, and this time we're heading to the sleepy town of Tres Cruces to make a little bank withdrawal. Driving carefully behind the wheel is my accomplice, Matt Sargent. Now, Matt, as we drive away from the bank, just drive naturally, okay?
That's funny because that clearly isn't what happened in the film. But I'll be honest with you, I'm surprised that as anyone that Walter Matthau could play a criminal. It just seemed to be against type, but I think it works.
You know, we are in the Walter Matthau set of films where he was playing more action roles. So he started with Charley Varrick, then he went into Pelham 1, 2, 3, and then he finished it up with The Laughing Policeman. These are just films that he put out where it was not the standard Walter Matthau film. I think next year we've got to get his last action film on our list because so far I'm all about Walter Matthau. Okay, in our first season of the Cinematic Flashback, we reviewed a lot of films by many great directors. And in our last episode, I made a Mount Rushmore of new Hollywood film directors. I included William Friedkin, Hal Ashby, Robert Altman, and I put Sam Peckinpah up there. But now I have to ask, does Don Siegel deserve to be up there?
Well, I got to say, that was a fun thought experiment on the last episode, and I think it's a good way to sort of bring in the three top that we like. But I got to say, after watching this film, I really like the action. I like the direction. I think we might just need to chisel out a little space on that rock.
You're absolutely right. Or perhaps Siegel is just going to need his own monument. Matt, who do we have talking to us today?
Today we have a review from listener Jason Call 24. Jason gave us 5 stars, thank you very much, and wrote, quote, "There are tons of podcasts covering movies of the 80s and 90s, which is why I so love Chuck and Matt going deep on films of the 70s. The hosts are enjoyable to listen to with great insight, background, and trivia. This is definitely a must listen. 5 stars. Wow, that was nice to hear, but you know what would be better to hear? Your own review. If you like what you hear, or you have thoughts on how we present or what we present, or even some comments or some insight that we don't know, please leave a comment, and we might just read it on the air.
Jason, thank you for the review. Now, Jason has been a supporter of the Cinematic Flashback and has his own little podcast called the Surely You Can't Be Serious podcast. And both Jason and Dee joined us last summer on our Jaws episode. And tonight I am sporting a Surely You Cannot Be Serious podcast t-shirt. So I'm going to give you guys a little shout out. Go to their merch shop. They got some good stuff over there.
Yeah, and you guys in the podcast possibly can't see the t-shirt, but I can see it, and it is really nice. It's got great bright colors, and I had no idea that Cinematic Flashback was having a merch purchase. I would have put my order in as well. Hey, Chuck, when we look at our page stats, it's cool to see where in the world people are listening to our podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's cool. Today, we want to give a shout out to our listeners in New Zealand, particularly in the Wellington region, Hawke's Bay, and Auckland. We would love to hear from you guys, whoever you are out there. Maybe a review or a comment. Tell us about your home and how you found out about our little cast.
Wow. That is just, it's hard to believe that people all over the world are actually listening to the two of us wax poetic about 70s cinema.
Yeah, it makes me want to raise my game a little bit.
We might need to.
Yeah.
Hey, today we are reviewing Charley Varrick, and I'm hoping we're introducing a new film to a lot of listeners today, because the first time I ever heard about Charley Varrick was from the Facebook group Cinema of the 70s. Matt, if you have ever asked yourself, where does Chuck actually come up with these movies to watch? It comes from this group, or it comes from another group called Can You Still Dig It? 70s Movies. And I get so many ideas from them, and I highly recommend both groups. And best of all, they have excellent moderation. Groups without good moderation become obnoxious. These are really well done. I think this was your first time watching Charley Varrick, am I right?
It was, for sure. Not sure how I missed this back in the day, but I'm glad I got to watch it recently.
Charley Varrick is one of those films that a lot of 70s film buffs remember. If you had to put it into a category, you could call it something like, American neo-noir, kind of like Chinatown, which sits in that same lane. And since this is a genre I happen to enjoy, we've got two more coming up later in the season. Arthur Penn's Night Moves from 1975, starring Gene Hackman. And we're going to pair that with Robert Altman's The Long Goodbye from 1973 with Elliot Gould. I'm hoping both of these will be at least somewhat new to you.
They're 100% new to me. I haven't seen either one of those films, but I really look forward to seeing them.
Let's take a dive into Charley Varrick's origin story, okay?
Check it out.
Like a lot of films, it started out as a book, passed through the hands of two different producers, and eventually made its way to the screen. And the history between those two producers, that's the kind of Hollywood drama you really couldn't invent. Those producers were Walter Wanger and Jennings Lane. Now, Wanger previously worked with Don Siegel on a film called Riot in Cell Block 11, and again 2 years later on a film called Invasion of the Body Snatchers. So Siegel was Walter's choice when he purchased the rights to John Reese's book, The Looters, which would eventually become Charley Varrick. But Siegel wasn't available. From 1967 to 1974, Siegel released 9 films: Strangers on the Run, Coogan's Bluff, Madigan, Death of a Fighter, 2 Mules for Sister Sarah, The Beguiled, Dirty Harry, Charley Varrick, and The Black Windmill. The only year a Don Siegel film was not released during that run was 1972.
That's an amazing run. That's like 7 years, 9 films. That's crazy. And if listeners have seen Death of a Gunfighter, they might remember that it was credited to Alan Smithee. Did you know that Alan Smithee is a pseudonym that was used by directors who wished to disown a project? It was first created by the Directors Guild of America in 1968 for Don Siegel and Death of a Gunfighter.
Now, I did not know that. There's actually a page on Wikipedia with all of the films that have been accredited to Alan Smithee. And there was one entry that surprised me, and that was Meet Joe Black, because Meet Joe Black was a big film. It was really good, and it was directed by Martin Brest, who made Beverly Hills Cop, Midnight Run, and Scent of a Woman. Had the airline version of the film credited to Alan Smithee because it cut out an entire subplot of the film, and he said, nope, that is not my film.
Meet Joe Black holds a special place for me as well because it stars Marcia Gay Harden, and Marcia Gay Harden is the sister of my sister-in-law.
What?
Yeah.
No way.
I have held her Oscar.
What?
She let me hold her Oscar.
Well, that's amazing. I'm learning all sorts of new things about Matt Sargent.
Yes, and my very large extended family.
Well, listen, if in your extended family she ever wants to make a little promo about us, we will send her some of our merchandise T-shirts sponsored by the Surely You Can't Be Serious podcast.
Well, she's very busy, surprisingly.
I would imagine so.
Yeah.
But getting back to Charley Varrick, Wanger passed away in November of 1968, and the film rights to The Looters ended up at Universal with producer Jennings Lane. Now, Lane produced many of the non-Irwin Allen disaster films, including Earthquake.
That was filmed in Sensurround. I was thinking that was originally used in naughty films.
Oh my, yes. But that application would have been interesting. In case our listeners have never heard of Sensurround, it was an augmentation to the conventional soundtrack. And in the case of Earthquake, it was activated during the earthquake scenes. It was so effective that the resulting rumble could be felt as well as heard by the audience. Unfortunately, it could also be heard in other auditoriums, and Mann's Chinese Theater even installed netting to catch any plaster that might come loose and fall on their patrons. Jennings Lane started off as an actor's agent, and this is back in the 50s. And one of his clients was Joan Bennett, who at the time happened to be married to Wanger. Wanger was so sure that Lane and his wife were having an affair, and in a fit of jealousy, Wanger shot Lane in the groin. Yes, Wanger shot Lane in the wang. But in all seriousness, he missed any reproductive parts, as Lane's son is able to testify to.
Like you said, a tale that could only be told in Hollywood.
Without a doubt. Are we ready to dive into Charley Varrick?
I think we should.
Okay, let's do it, but we need to step away for a quick break. We'll be right back.
It's a cinematic flashback. Let the show begin.
Varrick? You've seen Charley Varrick?
You're an interesting man, Mr. Varrick. Last of the Independents.
You want to die for somebody else's money?
$500,000?
Could be.
Harold Young, Trace Cruise's bank manager, has estimated that the bandits escaped with less than $2,000.
Who are they kidding, us?
It's 10 to 1. This stuff belongs to the mafia. This is gambling money, skimmed off the top. The mafia kills you. No trial, no judge. They never stop looking for you, not till you're dead. I'd rather have 10 FBI's after me.
One man against the mafia.
Bang! This little bank a million miles from nowhere gets hit by 4 professionals. Now they're going to think that's strange.
Why couldn't it be just a coincidence?
Because they don't believe in coincidence.
Crop dusters don't wave guns. Put that thing away fast.
Well, we're gonna get them. I'll never get out of New Mexico. I feel that in my gut.
Might want to fence off some money. Hot. Burning up.
What do you want?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to scare you. Which doesn't mean I won't throw you right out that window if I have to.
Sooner or later, you're going to tell me everything you know. So why not save yourself a great deal of pain? Where's Charles Varrick?
When Charley Varrick runs out of dumb luck, he always has genius to fall back on.
Welcome back. We are in our non-spoiler section, so let's dive into the production details. Charley Varrick was released on October 19, 1973 with a runtime of 111 minutes. It was produced and distributed by Universal Pictures. Charley Varrick is not currently streaming on Tubi, but it can be easily rented. It has an 82% on Rotten Tomatoes, and I found this interesting, an 83% audience rating, and that audience rating is comprised of over 2,500 reviews. Don Siegel directed. The script was written by Siegel veterans Dean Reisner and Howard Rodman, who also worked on Dirty Harry. Michael C. Butler was Siegel's godson and also the cinematographer on this film. Butler is best known for his work on The Cannonball Run, Jaws 2, and Telephone. Music was composed by Lalo Schifrin, another Siegel regular, and the curious thing about this score is that it was never released. I reached out to friend of the show and soundtrack genius, Wayne Whitehead. If anyone knows anything about this, he will, and Wayne came through. Besides just having some cues on a compilation, Wayne believes that the tapes were actually lost for that score, which is a real pity because it's a good soundtrack. The film also goes by the title Kill Charley Varrick in foreign distributions.
I have to say that I think I like the title Kill Charley Varrick better than just Charley Varrick.
Yeah, it played in other markets that way as well.
I think that would have been a better name, and I'll bet it would have gotten more people would have seen it. I think that's just my personal opinion.
This movie was highly influential on Quentin Tarantino. I have no doubt. There's some lines in this movie that are emulated in other Tarantino films.
Oh, for sure.
We have the movie Kill Bill, killed Charley Varrick. Hey, maybe not.
Yeah. We have a really good cast, and one of them is one of my all-time favorites. Let's talk about him. Walter Matthau is in the role as Charley Varrick. Varrick is a crop duster and a former stunt pilot. He, along with his wife Nadine, become skilled small-time bank robbers. They pull off heists at small banks. The heist of the Western Fidelity goes terribly wrong. We last talked about Walter Matthau in Pelham 123 last summer. That film, along with Charley Varrick and The Laughing Policeman, are his 3 action films of the 70s. Incidentally, his son, Charlie Matthau, can be seen in Tres Cruces twice, once in the opening credits trying to saddle a donkey, and then the kid with the black hair who tells the sheriff the license plate number of the yellow Continental but gets it wrong.
Yeah.
Incidentally, Don Siegel's 2 daughters appeared in the opening credits as well, establishing the normalness of Tres Cruces. His youngest daughter is the little girl who's playing with the sprinkler. Her older sister is shown cutting the grass. 2 of his sons also make an appearance in the credits, but they are mixed in with other actors.
Yeah. I thought that the opening of the film, I think what was happening is that they had got the cameras out there and they loaded it up with film, and they were just taking test shots, making sure the cameras, everything worked. And so they said, hey, we can go ahead and film the opening sequence for the titles. They were already a day ahead of schedule.
Yeah, no, and I like it when they do that kind of thing. And it did establish that this was a tiny, sleepy town.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about Joe Don Baker?
Yeah, Joe Don Baker plays Molly, and Molly is the muscle, and he works for, well, we're going to get into that.
Yeah.
Let's just say that he is an independent contractor who is hunting down the people who just robbed the Tres Cruces Bank.
Yeah.
Just the previous year, he co-starred in Sam Peckinpah's Junior Bonner, starring Steve McQueen. But in 1973, he had a film that was only meant to be played at drive-ins. But as we say today, that movie went viral and it got a wide release. The film is, of course, Walking Tall. It was very good timing to have Joe Don Baker in your film.
And I will say that I think he did a great job. He didn't play it over the top. He just played a highly competent contractor doing his work.
He's very cordial. He was very friendly until he's not.
Yeah. But he's also exceptionally efficient.
Yes.
And he wasn't just, I kind of think of in the No Country for Old Men, Heavy, paid by Javier Bardem, where he basically just kills everybody. I mean, he's super efficient. He's like a force of nature, but he flips a coin and everybody dies. Joe Don Baker's Molly, it's like surgical. He goes in, he gets the info, he does what he needs to do. I think that was more chilling than having this sort of unhinged lunatic.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it was over the top. I love No Country for Old Men, don't get me wrong, but that was just a little much for me.
Also done by the Coen brothers, I believe.
Yes, exactly. I want to do John Vernon because it made me laugh because he hadn't changed very much. John Vernon plays Maynard Boyle. He's the president of Western Fidelity Bank. And obviously we learn in the movie he's kind of involved with the bank that gets robbed in Tres Cruces. But the funny thing about John Vernon is he plays the mayor in Dirty Harry. But of course, he's probably much more known as Dean Wormer from Animal House. And whenever I see his face, I just laugh about Double Secret Probation and all those other scenes.
I mean, that role for him was iconic. And if you didn't know anything about John Vernon, go and take a look at his IMDb page because the guy worked a lot. And he was a big star in Canada, right? He made his profession in Canada before working in American television and movies.
Yeah, he was good.
We have another alumni of Dirty Harry.
Another friendly face.
Andy Robinson is Harmon Sullivan. Sullivan was the only other survivor of the Tres Cruces bank robbery, and he's an accomplice of Charley Varrick. The last time we saw him was he played Scorpio in Don Siegel's Dirty Harry film.
I feel like when these guys get on set, they're like, hey, how you doing? I haven't seen you in 6 months.
Let me ask you this question. Originally, they approached Clint Eastwood to play the role of Charley Varrick, and he turned it down. was that a fortunate turn down?
That's a funny thought. It would have been a completely different movie. I think Walter Matthau's goofy Huckleberry
you're right.
look kind of sets really works in this movie because of what this movie is. We don't want to give away any spoilers, but I think Clint Eastwood would have tipped you off
too
early,
soon.
too soon, right? He's too hard.
The reason that Clint Eastwood did not want to take it was because he did not like the overall character of Charley Varrick. And we'll talk about that.
We can see that. But
well, he's a rising star. But
yeah, he's a rising star, but he also played Dirty Harry. He basically shoots everybody. So I don't know about that.
Felicia Farr played Sybil Fort. Now, Sybil Fort was the executive assistant to Maynard Boyle. And the only reason why I really am highlighting her was because she just happened to be married to Walter Matthau's good buddy, Jack Lemmon. And so it's kind of funny to me that there's a scene where Walter Matthau's character is in a very round bed with Felicia Farr's character.
I believe the quote is boxing the compass.
I think that's what it was.
It's funny that you bring up Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau because one of my dad's favorite movies of all time was Grumpy Old Men.
Oh, yeah. Great film.
Just great films.
So much fun.
But she was great in that. She was funny, but she's his executive assistant, but there's a signed picture
John Vernon
of Maynard Boyle on her bedside. So, honestly, if you're having an affair with someone, do you give them a signed picture of you? It was like an autographed picture of Maynard Boyle.
That was really weird. That was weird.
It was funny.
I want to talk about Cherie North, and she plays Jewel Everett, who was Albuquerque's go-to forger. There's a really interesting story about Cherie. In 1954, she was signed to a 4-year contract with 20th Century Fox. So Fox was finding that their main female star at the time was becoming increasingly more uncontrollable. Fox was hoping to groom North to be that star's replacement. And when I say star, I mean a megastar. And that star was Marilyn Monroe. However, I don't think that North ever quite reached that level, but I will always love her as Cosmo Kramer's mom, Babs, in Seinfeld.
Couldn't be better. Hi, Lorraine.
Hi, Cosmo.
My mom, Babs.
Hi, Mrs. Kramer. Lorraine.
Yes, it's a fine day.
What do you say, Cosmo?
Hey, everything.
Oh, that's hilarious. She played a great, as Jewel Everett, she plays a great role in this movie. And when you see the movie, anybody else would have been like, oh, the bad guy's here, is Jewel going to be roughed up?
Yeah.
She just keeps doing her work. She is so cool in this movie. It was great.
Well, that was a bad lock.
The next one is hilarious. Do you want to take it? It's
absolutely.
Funny.
We had Norman Fell playing Mr. Garfinkel. Mr. Garfinkel represents the district attorney's office, and he's investigating any possible leads or any kind of shenanigans, maybe an inside job or something. But before he became associated with his most iconic role, Fell appeared in many movies and television programs. But of course, he is best known as Mr. Roper on ABC's monster hit Three's Company in 1979. In fact, he was awarded the Golden Globe for Best TV Actor in a Supporting Role for his role as Mr. Roper.
The sculpt.
Are you kidding? That's a great likeness.
That? It's just a blob.
Oh, don't fool me. I'd recognize your mother anyplace.
Yeah, I thought that was funny when you see them, and then you look up their IMDb page and you see they were in tons of stuff.
Yes.
Before the thing that is the thing that hit. A television sitcom is like gold.
Oh, yeah.
Right? They get residuals, goes on for many seasons. Hopefully, they can really make a good amount of money.
Well, the last actor that I wanted to spotlight was Marjorie Bennett, who plays Mrs. Taft. She is Varrick's nosiest neighbor in the trailer park and is convinced that every man she meets wants to seduce her.
You never can tell. There's mashers all around this place, They're after me all the time.
Yes, ma'am.
Just don't get any ideas.
No, ma'am.
The milkman's the worst. I make him leave his yogurt on the stoop. And I don't bring it in until after he's gone.
Every man's a masher. It's just something my mom used to say.
So What's amazing, though, is that Bennett's career spanned from 1917 to 1980, and she can be seen in just many films and television programs. She first worked with Don Siegel in Coogan's Bluff as, well, you guessed it, a little old lady.
That's crazy that she was acting all the way up to 1980.
Yeah, all the way. Why don't you grab that Blu-ray, turn it over, and let us know what the audience was about to see.
Sure. From Don Siegel comes this tough-as-nails action classic about a small-time crook who outfoxes the mob and the law. Screen great Walter Matthau stars as the titular career criminal with the powerful Joe Don Baker as the tough mafia hitman on his tail. Charlie robs small banks with small payrolls. That keeps him out of trouble until he stumbles onto the mob's secret cash. The chase is on as the big boys go after the last of the independents. It's a heart-pounding ride that builds to a fiery airborne climax as Charlie makes his last desperate run for the Mexican border and safety. How'd you like my announcer voice?
I like that very much. Oh.
Before we get into our thoughts about Charley Varrick, we need to take a quick break. We will be right back.
Up here, the air smells like old cardboard, vinyl records, and that slight combination of Aquanet and fresh mimeograph paper. Boxes are stacked to the rafters with the stuff that raised us. VHS tapes that were never rewound. Game cartridges you had to blow into. Mixtapes recorded straight off the radio. And the action figures that never survived mint condition. Each time I visit this attic, I'll pull out one specific artifact from days gone but not forgotten. Blow off the dust, flip it over, and remember what it felt like to hold it, watch it, play it, or just obsess over it. So grab your Walkman, Game Boy, or whatever ancient tech you're still clinging to, settle in, and let's see what forgotten gem we unearth each time we visit Gen Xer's attic. Because some things are worth saving from the garage sale of history. Coming soon, new podcast, Gen Xer's Attic. Listen to and download wherever you get your podcasts.
It's a cinematic flashback. Let the show begin.
I understand perfectly.
I am not a physically courageous man, Maynard.
It's our mafia friends who won't understand. They're gonna wonder why you led them directly to the vault with the money in it, instead of the empty vault in the rear. And frankly, Harold, why did you do that?
Do you know what would have happened if I had taken those people to an empty vault?
Number one, the money would have been saved. Number two, there'd be no question of an inside job.
Inside job?
That's the way the diseased minds work. A bank gets it, bang, they look for a double cross.
Why couldn't it be just a coincidence?
Because they don't believe in coincidence.
Welcome back. All right, from here on out, we're going to talk about our thoughts on Charley Varrick, and we might inadvertently give some spoilers, but Chuck and I have agreed that we're not going to actually detail how the ending happens. It's too much fun to be let in on.
The film's opening credits, as we said earlier, does a great job selling you this idea that Tres Cruces is, just this little sleepy, small, ordinary town. But not everything is as it seems. The first time we see Walter Matthau as Charley Varrick, he's not the same Walter Matthau that we're used to seeing. He's obviously disguised as an elderly man with a broken leg, which explains why his wife has parked their yellow Continental in front of the small branch of the Western Fidelity Bank. So Matt, unlike The Getaway, where we had this really intricate bank robbery plan set up, this one, the robbery is really already in motion. We don't really have any complicated steps, but as we're going to see, there definitely was a plan laid out.
They probably were light on the plan because it seems like they've done this a few times.
Mm-hmm.
The problem with this robbery is stuff goes wrong and guns start firing.
What I thought they did good was that, just like in The Getaway, there's two guys already in the bank.
Yeah, I did not even notice them, so that was a big surprise.
If you go back and you watch it again, now that you know that you're looking, when it shows them over there, the light is real low. You weren't really supposed to see them.
Yeah, I think everything was going well until a policeman happened to think that this plate looked funky and calls it in.
Yeah.
They go talk to Charley Varrick's wife, who's sitting out there in front of the bank. She ends up shooting one of them, and then he gets a shot off.
And we later learn that it does hit Nadine Varrick. One thing that I really liked about this movie is that they didn't make their criminals look smart by making the police look stupid.
No, I thought that was a really good point, and I'll talk about it a little bit later, but I totally agree with that point.
The bank heist, naturally, it goes wrong. This is our movie.
Yeah.
Did you want to talk about the guns?
It's interesting. You can go to the Internet Movie Firearms database. The guard shoots Dutcher with Dutcher's Smith & Wesson Model 28. Charlie was carrying a Colt Python snub nose. Harmon was carrying a Smith & Wesson Model 29. You know who else carries a Smith & Wesson 29?
Yes, I do, because you told us on our Dirty Harry episode. Are you telling me that Andy Robinson's character is carrying the gun that his previous character was shot with?
Well, I will tell you this. The Smith & Wesson Model 29 came in several different calibers, so it may not have been a 44. It might have just been a 38, but it was basically the same gun.
In our getaway review, we kind of made fun of this need to speed out of town, but what about here?
I kind of called that out because when the driver, who is Nadine, she speeds out of there and rams into a police car that's sitting still, and the whole front of her car goes up. She can't see anything. There's more police coming. It's very exciting. But to be honest with you, she could have slowed down a little bit, maybe driven around that police car. She'd been better off.
The way the stunt was actually supposed to happen was the sheriff's hood was supposed to go up. But for some reason, the hood on the Continental went up.
Oh.
And Don Siegel, he's a very efficient director. When he gets the shot, it might not be the perfect shot, but he's going to move on to the next one. And the reason why he does that is because if he doesn't have a lot of takes to use, that means nobody can really fiddle around with this film by picking other shots to put into it.
That's actually something that Clint Eastwood does, too.
Yes.
He does not take a lot of shots. He's like, yeah, we got it. Let's go.
He must have gotten that from working with Don Siegel.
Yeah, it seems smart. I will say that if we talk about that little getaway scene, she rams into the sitting still car. That's when her hood goes up and hides her view. And then she's still driving the car. It is clear that she is a very, very good driver. But then we find out later.
But she was shot, right?
She was shot.
Yeah.
Right in the middle. So, but even so, she was driving that car like a champ.
Yeah.
Later on in the film, we see a picture of Charlie and Nadine. He's a stunt pilot and she's a female race car driver.
This film is smart. It does not spoon feed you. It will show you things, right?
Yeah.
There she is. You can tell she was a stunt car driver working with Charlie as he was a stunt pilot. You know, it's already setting up. These are people that have a certain set of skills, and hers was driving.
Yeah. At one point, Charlie shares some of their history of all the different things they did.
Well, she passes. She doesn't survive her wounds, but they still continue with the plan to blow up the Yellow Continental. They set up this improvised explosive device, which kind of shows that Charlie has a few more skills.
Yeah. Yeah, it was an interesting thing when he was setting up the timer device, basically using a kitchen timer and a couple of 6-volt batteries and a gap to make a spark.
They had the black powder around the car, in the car, and then they had some cheesecloth coming out of the gas tank.
Yeah, it's a standard Molotov cocktail type thing where you put a rag in and then pull it out and it's full of gasoline.
But again, this film does a great job of not considering the audience dumb.
Yeah.
It's not explaining everything, but it's revealing things as we go on.
You're an interesting man, Mr. Varrick.
Go to sleep, Miss Ford.
Last of the Independents.
The phrase "Last of the Independents" comes up a lot in this film, so much so that was the title that Siegel originally wanted. So Charley Varrick is really about the end of a certain kind of criminal, the small independent operator. Once the mafia and big organized crime starts to move in, guys like Varrick don't survive very long.
Mr. Varrick, you sure this money's good?
People kill each other for that kind of money. Can I use one of your suckers?
Cost you an extra $500. Close the outside door on your way out, okay?
You got it.
They get back to their trailer, begin to realize that there's something wrong with the money.
Well, there's far too much of it.
Yeah, it's like $750,000.
They state that they were thinking they were getting something like 20,000.
The radio reports say that they got away with $2,000.
Yeah.
And they're like, what? They think we can't count? Varrick begins to realize, oh no.
Yeah.
What?
This is untraced money, and why is it there?
This is money that's maybe exiting the country to get laundered and then brought back in.
Yeah.
I don't know if you noticed, it was about $750,000, which also was the overall amount of money that was taken out of the bank in the getaway.
Back then, $750,000 was a ton of money.
It could be a ton of money today.
Well, I don't know. That's about a house. I think back then that was about 10 houses.
I was always worried about his partner, Harmon Sullivan.
Oh, yeah.
I thought he was a liability the entire time.
He clearly wasn't going to be able to keep his mouth shut, wasn't going to be able to not spend the money.
Mm-hmm.
This is the typical problem you get. We see it over and over again in all kinds of crime films. You have to be cool. You can't spend the money. In many, many films, there's a whole thing about, we're going to put this money away. We're not going to touch it for 2 years. We're going to live our life like we live our life so that we're totally untraceable. And that's what has to be done. But Harmon Sullivan, that ain't going to happen.
I've been waiting all my life to make a score like this. And now that it's here, I ain't waiting no more. I mean, I'm going to wail. And I'm talking about chicks.
The world of Charley Varrick is like that world of John Wick. There's this whole criminal underworld that no one else is aware of, and it's right there in plain sight. Maynard Boyle has been working with the mob, from skimming off money at the Reno casinos, storing it in small branches. I thought this was kind of funny, he didn't use a phone. He used a shortwave radio, and somehow he contacts Molly, played by Jodon Baker, the mob's enforcer.
It's funny that you say that. I mean, there's a whole underbelly going on for sure. Molly is clearly an independent contractor, which is another funny thing because he's also one of the last of the independents, right?
There you go. Nice. Good pull.
He comes in with a job to do, and there's absolutely no evidence for him to follow. He goes to Honest John, who tells him, we don't have any information at all. This is sort of one of the key inflection points in the whole movie for me. At this point, Charley Varrick has explained to Harmon Sullivan, we can't touch this money for years. We can't do anything. We can't buy anything. We can't live at all different. If they actually did what they said they did, which is they don't say anything, they don't talk about it, nothing happens, the only people that Varrick's going to have to contend with are the police, who are now no dummies, we find out. They're investigating this crime because one of their sheriffs was killed. I mean, it's a big deal. I think Charley Varrick correctly realizes something's got to be done because some way or another, the mob is going to find out that it's us. And it doesn't matter if we're in jail. It doesn't matter where we are.
They're like the Terminator. They
So
can't be bargained with. They can't be reasoned with. They
Right.
just are going to come after you.
And I think the interesting thing about this film is I'm not 100% sure at this point in the film he has decided to do something about that, right? You can watch this film and say, oh, he's sort of being pushed around by the wind and he's, doing this, and then this happens and then he puts a plan together and things work out, maybe. But if you really think about it, you wonder if Charley Varrick is actually this calculating.
We are purposefully talking around.
Yes, we are.
The easiest way to say it is that you'll watch the film and Charley does a whole series of things that seem not connected to anything.
And not particularly smart.
Because you go, why would you do this? Why would you tell this guy you've got money to move? Why would you? It boggles your mind. And if you're not prepared for that, you might check out. But what I would encourage listeners to do is to check in, because this script is really tight. It's like a Swiss watch. It does not all click into place until the very last minute or so of the film. Would you agree?
Yes. And I will say, it's not like it's a dog in the middle where you're like, oh God, I'm going to turn it off. It's so boring. It's not. It keeps a pace. It keeps moving. you might have questions in your head, but things are happening so fast that you want to continue to watch to see how things unfold. And at the end, let's just say things come together in a very satisfying way. So it's interesting.
Matt, you are so right about how this movie moves along. For example, between the time they do the robbery and the time that they realize that they have $750,000, a half hour has gone by. But you're so engaged with the film, you don't even notice how much time has actually passed. It's very entertaining. The one thing that I did want to pull out, there is this entire informal underground network, gun shops, forgers, gambling fronts, and back channels information. But I did want to point out at the Imperial Restaurant, that is a front for Honest John's gambling hall, in the back is a guy playing ping pong with Honest John, and he loses. That guy was Don Siegel.
Oh,
that was his cameo.
Funny. Oh, that's so funny. I love that. I love that. Now I'm going to do a rewatch of this movie because I liked it so much, and I'll look for that. That'll be funny.
We'll pause here for just a moment. Think of it as a real change. Stick around. There's more Cinematic Flashback coming up right after this. And we're back. The lights are down, the film's rolling, and the final act begins. Let's jump back into the Cinematic Flashback Podcast.
Matt, we get to the final act, and, I don't know about you, but I don't feel right telling our listeners exactly how Charley resolves this situation.
Yeah, I agree. We talked about it before. I think this is definitely a film where discovering it is nice. So we'll let them discover it.
Everything about the conclusion is telegraphed ahead of time. And the first time you see it, you might not catch it, but by the end, you're just going to see, like I said, how everything just kind of cleverly was set up. I should point out that while the film was critically well received, it actually underperformed box office expectations, though it still ended up turning a modest profit.
Oh, they should have changed the name. They should have used the name Kill Charley Varrick. It would have been better.
It was well known at that time that Walter Matthau was not fond of the film, and he had publicly stated that he neither liked the film nor really understood it. And Don Siegel would later say that Matthau's comments hurt the film at the box office.
I would agree with Don Siegel on that. I think that if your star comes out and kind of pans it, it's going to disincentivize people from going to see it. And I find it odd because, as I said before, I think Walter Matthau worked really well in this role. And I think if you had, like a Clint Eastwood, it would not have been the same film. It wouldn't have been nearly as good or anybody. But somebody like Walter Matthau, they need to hide a certain amount of his abilities, and his delivery of this character, I think, does it really, really well. So I'm sad that he didn't like the movie and he didn't understand it, because it seems very clear to me.
Finally, there is an interesting parallel with The French Connection. Both films are about professionals chasing each other through these larger criminal systems. Friedkin tells the story from the cop's side, while Don Siegel flips the perspective and shows us the same kind of story, but from the criminal's point of view. So in The French Connection, we follow Doyle and Rousseau, two professional detectives chasing Alain Charnier. In Charley Varrick, the roles are flipped. Varrick is the meticulous professional criminal, and Molly is essentially the mob's version of the investigator sent out to track him down.
Yeah, and let's not forget about the police, in the local police, and maybe that was the state police in there as well. They weren't very far behind Molly. And even without Molly and his information, I think they were still going to get to Charley Varrick and his trailer.
Yeah. Well, they showed up there.
Yeah, and Molly didn't tell them.
No.
They figured it out on their own with just good, solid police work.
Yeah, like I said, they don't make Charley Varrick look smart by making the police look dumb, and I always appreciate that.
Yeah.
Are we ready to ask the question, does Charley Varrick groove through the decades, or did it skip a beat? Where did this land for you?
I don't think it's any surprise to our listeners that I'm going to give a simple yes. It grooves through the decade. It is entertaining, if a little bit bloody, and it is very smart. I only had a couple of reservations about the story, but they are nitpicky, so I'm not even going to elaborate on them. It was a good watch, and I easily sat down and watched the whole thing in one go. I was very entertained.
Wow, that is some high cotton from Matt Sargent.
It is indeed.
What you might forget while you're watching this film is that with the exception of Mrs. Taft, Mr. Garfinkel, and the Tres Cruces Sheriff's Department, everyone else in this film is a criminal. So how can you make your main character sympathetic? And by the end, you're actually rooting for them. Let's not forget that Varrick does some very questionable things that may be your nitpicks in there, Matt. But the point is, while we like Varrick, he's definitely an anti-hero. So what you do is you make him sympathetic by casting Walter Matthau, and then you have him directed by one of the 70s best directors, Don Siegel. And then you cast Joe Don Baker and John Vernon to track him down and make both of them as classy and as nasty as possible. The final ingredient is to show Matthau doing a bunch of seemingly unrelated things that all come together in the final moments of the film. Charley Varrick is incredibly smart, well-written, and it's a film that grooves through the decades. Matt, do you have any final thoughts?
I agree 100% of what you said. I think maybe that's why I like it so much. It's very simple. It's very straightforward. It's got a lot of action, a little bit bloody here and there, but it just is tight. Like you described, it's tight. It's awesome.
Can I put you on the hot seat real quick?
Sure.
This is the end of our Crime Wave month. I think we had 2 very good films from 2 very good directors with very good stars and actors in them. Which film did you like better?
You know, I liked both of these films a great deal. And like I said, remember, I don't think I had really seen either one of them.
Mm-hmm.
I thought The Getaway was just nice because they got to ride away in the
sunset.
Ride away in the sunset, and, both of them made it. And I think we know, without
Mm-hmm.
ruining our spoil thing, that Walter Matthau's wife does not make it.
Right.
So that was nice. But in terms of watchability, I think maybe this was a little more watchable. And maybe it's because I think Steve McQueen comes off a little arrogant.
A little too cool?
A little too cool, yeah.
Yeah.
Clearly, most people are not that cool. Charley Varrick is not cool.
Yeah.
Charley Varrick is smart, but he's not cool. I might give the nod to Charley Varrick, although I enjoyed both of them a great deal.
Now, you realize that Charley Varrick was rated PG and The Getaway was rated R.
Yeah, but that's because... wasn't there innuendo and...
Well, originally, they wanted to get Charley Varrick out in theaters for Easter. And so they were making sure that this was more of a PG level versus the hard R that they were originally going to go with. But I think that actually plays to the charm of the film.
I agree. I do not want to see Walter Matthau semi-naked. That would be horrible.
No. Or, him beating somebody to a bloody pulp.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
What makes Charley Varrick so entertaining is Walter Matthau. And there's just something about the way, he looks. It's just something that's just very honest and believable about him. The Getaway is a well-made film.
Mm-hmm.
It is very good. It's very exciting. And I enjoyed both films, but I've watched both films a couple of times, and I think I enjoy Charley Varrick just a smidge more.
Yeah. I have to say that Joe Don Baker in this film was just fun to watch. He is not over-the-top violent like we talked about before. He's not Javier Bardem in No Country for Old Men. He just has that calm menace that is very, very hard to not pay attention to.
So both of these films had 2 really good heavies. We had Al Lettieri as Rudy in The Getaway, and we had Joe Don Baker. Both of these bad guys came at it slightly differently. Both of them were menacing in their own ways. Lettieri comes off a little more sexually deviant, but I thought Joe Don Baker, he's a nice guy. It's almost like a Quentin Tarantino character, right?
Yeah.
There's always these great conversations and they're great people until something switches and all of a sudden things go south very fast.
And I guess my point is it doesn't switch like Sugar in No Country for Old Men. It's like it's a tool he brings out to do what he has to do and get the information he needs to get.
Yeah.
If he gets the information without it, he just moves along.
It really is like this little network. No one's safe.
Yeah.
Well, that does it for our Crime Wave month. Join us in 2 weeks as we keep things in the criminal world, but this time we're shifting from bank robberies and hitmen to con artists. First up, we're heading back to 1973, The Sting, Directed by George Roy Hill and starring Paul Newman and Robert Redford, this Depression-era caper follows two grifters trying to pull off one of the greatest cons ever put on film. We're going to pair that with another classic from the same era, Paper Moon, starring Ryan and Tatum O'Neal and directed by Peter Bogdanovich. It's a road movie, a father-daughter story, and a charming look at the small-time hustling in the Depression. So Matt, next month, we're trading in mobsters and murderers for grifters, hustlers, and confidence men. And honestly, in the 1970s, that might just be the most dangerous crowd of all.
Yeah, I was just thinking, in The Sting, isn't the mark
Robert Shaw?
Robert Shaw.
Robert Shaw is making another appearance on the Flashback.
We can't get far away from
Robert Shaw and Gene Hackman. It's a shame the two of them didn't do a movie together.
That would have been amazing. We want to thank you for taking the time to tune in. If you have seen Charley Varrick, please reach out and let us know your thoughts about it. You can do so on our Facebook page or leave us a message at www.cinematicflashback.com. And please don't forget to leave us a rating and a review. We really do appreciate it, and it just might get read on the air. Not to mention, it really helps us reach more people. If you have enjoyed the podcast, let your friends and family know about the best 70s movie podcast they will ever hear, and they will definitely thank you for it. Join us next time as we hop back into the Wayback Machine and head once again to the 1970s for another classic. We'll see you then.
With the cinematic flashback, put your taste to the test.